Hi there, welcome to the Well-Being Whizz Omnicast episode 5. It's me, Bevan Thompson, the Well-Being Whizz, with you again. And I'd like to explain, like I do every week, what an Omnicast is. Basically, it's not a Facebook Live, it's not a podcast, it's not a YouTube video, it's not a blog, it's all of those things at once. And I try and get all the information out there in one place if possible. So it's got a live feel, but it's also recorded for you guys to watch whenever you feel like it. Now, what is the Omnicast all about? Well, I'm a life coach specialising in anxiety and helping people with anxiety. I personally suffered quite badly from anxiety for a long time. I had the sort of the racing thoughts. I couldn't concentrate. I was confused a lot of the time. I projected forward to sort of possible horrible scenarios in my mind, and I'd lost control of my thoughts and my life, and I decided that I needed to do something about it. A lot of the things that I realised I'm putting into these Omnicasts for you, so you can sort of learn to manage your anxiety too, and sort of work along with me, and and see what I do with my clients in my day job to sort of help you guys get over your anxiety. Now, a big thing about today is I'm trying to get all over saying sort of. So what you should do, if you're listening to this or if you're watching it, just every time I say sort of, note it down and let me know how many times I say it, because I notice I do say it a fair amount. Now, today's episode, what's it about? Well, today's episode, I'm scrolling through my notes here, is going to be about sort of the things we've been looking at over the last 3 weeks. We've been looking at thoughts, we've been looking at beliefs, we've been looking at your mind and how they sort of shape your anxiety and what they do to you. Now today I'm going to look at something completely different. I'm going to look at circumstances and how they affect you. Now they are linked with thoughts and I'll explain why later, but this is the biggest concept that had the biggest impact on me about circumstances and how they affect you, right? Now for me it was the big aha moment, the big realization that when I was working on my anxiety, that circumstances played a huge part of it, but it wasn't them themselves. It was how I was thinking about those circumstances and what emotions that was bringing about. Now, when I work with clients, I go through 3 phases. I go through an awareness phase, which this is part of, realizing that circumstances and how they affect you. I go through an acceptance phase, where then you accept that it's actually you that's doing this, you that's attributing these thoughts, you that's creating your anxiety, not anything else, and then a sort of wisdom phase of sorting it out. So this circumstance part falls into the awareness phase, just as the beliefs and the thoughts from the last couple of weeks did as well. So it all ties in. So if you haven't listened to the episodes on thoughts and beliefs and how to get your mind working for you, I'd suggest you listen to those first, or you watch them on YouTube, watch them on my Facebook page, and sort of get to grips with the idea of where your thoughts come from, where your feelings come from, where your actions come from, and this will then tie into that quite neatly, and it sort of explains the whole thing. Here's the golden nugget for you today. This is the piece of information that changed my life and started me on the path to getting my anxiety under control. Circumstances are entirely neutral. Now, it's a huge concept to get hold of, so I'll repeat it one more time. Circumstances themselves are entirely neutral. Circumstances aren't the reason you're anxious, okay? The things that are happening around you have no effect on you at all. What it is, they are sort of separate of yourself, right? Circumstances happen outside you. They don't define you. They don't define your anxiety, don't define anything. And I'll explain why now for you. But remember that circumstances are neutral. And that's the big thing that keeps going through my mind every day. Okay, now, as always, I like to look on Google to get a definition of what a circumstance is. Do that every week, and I think it's a nice way of, because the way the word is explained actually gives you a secret look into what it actually means, okay? So, because we've changed the meaning of certain things over time, and if you look at the definition in the dictionary, it gives you the real thing. Now, here we go. Circumstance is a fact or condition connected with or relevant to an event or action. So that's a fact or condition connected with or relevant to an event or action. That's important, right? The word fact. Remember how it's relevant to how thoughts create your emotions, emotions create your actions, actions create your results, right? We've learned that the last few weeks. Circumstances aren't in that list. They're not in that loop. Thoughts, emotions, actions, results. Circumstances are nowhere near it, okay? They are outside of us and they don't define anything. But the big thing there is the word fact, right? Circumstances are nothing more than facts. Nothing more that everyone agrees on a fact, right? Something that everyone can agree on and would stand up in a court of law. That's what a circumstance is, okay? For example, the grass outside is green, right? There's a horse in that field, okay? There's no thought, opinion, belief, or emotion going into that, right? What's going into that is pure fact. There is a horse in that field, the grass is green, okay? That is a circumstance. Now, like I said before, circumstances are completely neutral, okay? Until we attach a thought to them. The circumstance can't affect you until you have an opinion on it, until you give it to a thought, give a thought to it, right? You give a thought to it, that creates an emotion, creates a feeling about that thought, a feeling about that circumstance, and that's what gives a circumstance power. Now, I've written this phrase down because I always get it wrong, but do you remember that sort of old famous phrase, if a tree falls in a forest, no one is around, does it make a sound? Yeah? If a circumstance happens without you attributing thought and then emotion to it, it's got no power. And does that make sense? It's like you're the one giving the circumstance weight, giving the circumstance control. And that is what you really need to get hold of when it comes to anxiety. If a situation is stressing you out, a situation is making you feel anxious, it's not the circumstance, it's not the situation. That's neutral. It's your thought and emotion that is making you anxious or stressed about that circumstance, right? Now, let's look at it in a practical way. Let's look at circumstances in a practical way. And the best way I tell people about this is when I'm coaching them, is I say, let's look at weight, because that's a great circumstance, right? Someone jumps on the scales and it says 11 stone, right? The 11 stone is a number. That is a circumstance. It's a fact that you weigh 11 stone, right? Now, it's measurable, it's debatable. You could look at it in a court of law. You could say, yes, the figures on the scale said 11 stone. That is a stone cold dead fact, right? You then add thought to that weight. Oh my word, I'm 11 stone. I'm incredibly heavy, right? Or I'm incredibly light, if you like. You know that either way, you're adding thought to that number. Alone, it's just a number, okay? Now, a lot of people will look at that and say, oh my God, the way I am, I'm too heavy, I wish I was thinner, right? That leads to an emotion, either guilt, sadness, whatever that one word emotion, we were talking about that the other week, it leads to that emotion, the thought about the weight, leads to the emotion of sadness or unhappiness or whatever you want to call it, which then leads to actions and behaviours like sulking, eating more to feel better, whatever, drinking, whatever the behaviour that comes after the emotion, right? So let's look at it another way. You get on the scale, it says 11 stone. There's your circumstance, the number is still 11. And you think, 11 stone, pretty pleased. I was 12 stone the other week. I've lost a stone. That's brilliant. Your emotion is happiness, right? Can you see that the number has not changed? The circumstance is exactly the same. It's just your thoughts and emotions that have changed about that circumstance. Does that make sense? Now, the thing, this can be applied to sort of any circumstance you think of. Like, I know, you call someone up on the phone, they don't answer, right? The fact is that they haven't answered the phone, right? But in your mind, you're thinking, oh, they're ignoring me, they've fallen out with me, they don't like me. There's your thoughts. Your emotions are sadness. Oh no, I've lost a friend. You know, these people could have been on the train, they could have been on the toilet. You know, they haven't answered the phone is the only real fact in that whole sort of scenario. It's the only circumstance that they haven't answered the phone. It's you that's adding the thoughts and emotions to that that's making it an anxious situation. Do you understand? And it's so simple. And people say, oh, Bev, you know, that's far too flippant. Like, it can't apply for every situation. I've had all these circumstances happen to me, which again, if you look at circumstances happening to you, again, you're applying thought to it because the circumstance is just happening. And I said, well, let's take possibly the worst thing you can think of, right? And stay with me because it's quite a tricky one to look at when you've only just heard this concept. But if someone dies, okay? Someone dies, the circumstances they have died, right? As awful as it may feel, they have died, right? They have stopped breathing, they are dead, right? Now, if that's your Uncle Bert, right? You then apply thought to that. Uncle Bert has died. I will miss him. Emotion, sadness, right? Does that make sense? You've applied a thought to the fact you're going to miss Uncle Bert, a lovely bloke, and your emotion is sadness. Now, I don't know Uncle Bert, never met him, never even heard of him. Uncle Bert dies. I am sort of neutral to that fact. He's still dead. The same thing has still happened. The circumstance is the same, but my thought towards it is, well, nothing else. I've never heard of him. And even if I did hear him, I think, oh, that's a shame. But I wouldn't be as emotionally affected by the thought I've attached to it as the one you've attached to it. Does that make sense? Now, I know that's incredibly extreme, but it's a really good way of explaining it that the worst thing you could possibly think of, your thought is still what is making it terrible. Do you understand? Now, that's quite a big leap to take, and I understand that, but it's, like I say, it's the most extreme thing I can think of. Now, if you understand the concept that these circumstances are all neutral and all it is you adding thought to them and then adding emotion to them is what's making you anxious, what's making you stressed, right? How can we make them seem less scary or less important, right? The first thing to do is realize the circumstance you're dealing with is just a fact. That's really, really important. Don't add anything to it. A bit like, there's a cow in the field there. Don't add, there's a menacing looking cow in the field there, right? You're adding your opinion to that circumstance. The circumstance is there is a cow there, right? You're not going, oh, there's a scary looking bull in that field and it might come and get me. There you go. You've already started stepping out of the fact. That's the thing I need to do. It's make sure that you are looking at the fact itself and you're not sort of seeing it through a lens and changing it, adding your own opinion to it, adding your own thought to it, right? For example, your boss says, do you want to work late tonight? Now, your initial thought is, oh my God, he hates me. He wants me to work late. That's horrible. It's unfair. Hang on a minute. Rewind it. The circumstance is the boss has asked you to work late. All the rest of the things on the back of that are things you've added to it. They're thoughts you've added to that sentence. Make sense? So once you've established what the circumstance is, then sort of try what the actual sort of solid fact. Try and look at different ways of applying thought to that circumstance. A bit like the 11 stone thing, right? The initial thought we applied to it was, oh my word, I'm heavy, or oh my word, I'm light, whatever you want to look at. The secondary way of looking at it was, I'm lighter than I was before, or, I'm X years old and that's not a bad way for someone my age, whatever. The different thoughts you apply to it give that same circumstance with the same fact, different sort of alleyways to go down in your brain, different sort of outlooks on the same fact, right? Like we've discussed in previous weeks, you've always got the choice. The choice always lies with you. The power is with you, right? The power to choose what you think about that circumstance lies with you. And that can be for anything, right? You can turn any terrible situation into a positive if you look deep enough. And I know that sounds so new age and right on, and but it's true. There's always something you can take from a circumstance, or you notice that you're adding to a circumstance that can soften it, right? Okay, so this week for me, I always like to give you homework, like I say, every single week. This week, try and take a circumstance that's stressing you out or making you anxious. Write it down, okay? Whatever it be. Boil it down to that exact circumstance. Excuse my dog in the background. She likes to bark at neighbours. Boil it down to that exact circumstance, right? Make sure you know exactly what the circumstance is. No opinion. Would it stand up in a court of law, right? Then write down as many positive and negative spins of thought on that circumstance for me, right? See if you can look at that circumstance through different lenses, different ways, soften it up, make it even positive possibly, right? And then you'll start to become aware of how you're thinking about these neutral situations and how it's making you anxious or making you scared, making you wary, making you worry, whatever, right? So I hope you've enjoyed the Omnicast this week. Like I say, always every week, pop over to my website, www.thewellbeingwhiz.com/calm mind. That's www.thewellbeingwhiz.com/calm mind. Download my free audiobook, How to Worry Less in 7 Days, Calm Mind. And there's a few of these exercises in there that will help you sort of look at circumstances, look at thoughts and things like that. But till then, I'll see you next week, and thanks for tuning in. Cheers.